Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about my mid-year author reset and why I feel like it's necessary this year. I think this is more than ironic given the fact that my last video I did was about self-sabotage. And I actually went back and watched that video, and it was almost like I just basically called out what I would then do over like the next couple weeks. And I do think it's kind of interesting how that happens. Like, you can kind of you try to sort of like talk about something, or give advice on like how not to do something, and then in your very next breath, what are you doing? You're stumbling, falling, and doing the very thing that I actually said in that video I am most guilty of and do the most frequently when it comes to my own self-sabotage. So I will say that since that video, I have spent some time really reflecting and journaling and thinking about, why do I continue to do this? And took some steps to really turn it around. So this mid-year author reset for me is really about putting those actionable plans into place and just moving forward, sort of getting my own self unstuck from that spiral that I had ended up in. So let's talk about what I've done. This is just going to be like a chatty kind of like, sit down, let's discuss this kind of video. So I'm not going to be doing any flat lays with my planners, although I know I will talk about them a little bit. And if you would like to see my current planner setup in another video, just let me know. It's a whole other setup. So this is what it is. But my number one thing that I did is I dug back into my planner. And for those of you that know, I use a 6-ring binder. And right now I'm currently using Infinite Lotus inserts for the most part. A couple things are pages that I had designed myself and things like that. And I kind of pulled out things that I wasn't using, things I had maybe set up in January, like a goal planner page and things like that, just they weren't serving the purpose. And so I'm like, why am I hanging on to this? Let's get it out of here, kind of thing. So pulled those out, and then just really kind of brainstormed. And this has always worked for me in the past, so I don't know why I ever get away from it, but I just brainstormed all the things that I wanted to accomplish in July. Now, and this is after sort of reviewing what had my grand plans for 2026 been in the first place. And I have moved the needle on several of those things, but then I just kind of really got hung up and stopped when it came to the book. And we'll circle back and talk about that. But I just wrote down everything every project, everything that I had sort of wanted to accomplish this year, both personal and professional, and just put it all out. Because for me, oftentimes, like, making big lists like that, it alleviates that sort of like stress, that anxiety for me, that I'm going to forget about it, or I'm constantly going to be like spinning about it in my head. And so if it exists on a piece of paper like that, then I can stop worrying about it. And then as the weeks go on, I can just pick, like, okay, this is a priority, this is what I'm going to work on now. But I'm not forgetting the big scope that I also want to make sure I'm keeping track of. So those big long lists like that, they work for me, and then I can take those and kind of micro plan from those on a week to week basis. So I did that first of all, kind of thing, and that was, like it always is, like magical for me. I loved that. So I reset my planner. And then the other thing that and this is why I sort of, I kind of stopped posting, or I started posting a lot less on like YouTube, and also on Instagram and Facebook and things like that, because I just really wanted to wrap my head around, like, what purpose is this serving, and do I enjoy this anymore? And I really wanted to find some simplicity. I wanted to find something that was workable for me, that that it was joyful to do and filled me up, and it didn't feel like an obligation that, like, sometimes, like, I feel like a content calendar. I don't get a lot of joy out of planning social media content. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I get a lot of joy out of planning YouTube videos. Like, I think I prefer like the sit down chatty ones. And honestly, those are the ones I prefer to watch as well. And maybe you don't feel the same way, and we're not going to have that love connection on here. And that's okay. Like, everybody, there's tons of content on here, right? Like, for anybody and everyone, they can find, the thing that's going to fill them up and make them happy. But I think the point is that if I'm going to continue to post here and on other social media places, I need to be making content that fills me up. Otherwise, I think you just get burned out from it. And so I think I really just want to refocus on, I want the content here to be, specifically on writing, authors, creativity, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to make it too complicated. I thought maybe travel, because I do a lot of traveling, but I think you just have to like narrow it down and you have to choose. And when you try to do it all is when you kind of get frustrated. So I think in order to keep it simple, I'm just going to kind of stick to that bookish kind of content for at least the next couple months and just kind of see how that goes. So planning, simplifying. The other thing that I did was it's really sort of like recommitting to my current book. And so my current book is Her Name Was Lola. I think I have just sort of felt like a lot of failure around this title. It's certainly it's my 11th book. So, it's not my first rodeo for sure kind of thing. But I had planned on this book coming out in January and it wasn't ready. Like, so I had the pre-order, everything was ready to go, and it just sort of all slipped through my fingers. Like it all just fell apart. And partly, I think because the scope of this book ended up being so much more than I had anticipated. Like I had originally planned for this book to be like 85, 90,000 words. I'll tell you, I was working on it this morning and I looked at the word count and it's like at 113,000 words. And I'm just like, part of me, I was talking to my husband about this and, have you ever seen that movie Wonder Boys? And, Michael Douglas's character in that, he's a professor, but he writes books. And he just has this never-ending book, this book that it's like, I think it's up to like 800 pages or something. It's been a minute since I've seen that movie, but, this ridiculously long book. And, my husband made the joke about that. And I was like, I hope not. I mean, I really am at the end of it, but the end takes longer than you don't want to rush it. You don't want to rush the ending, right? And so the end is taking longer than I thought it would take. And it seems like a lot of moving parts to this particular book. That's not to say I'm not excited about it. And maybe it's because I care so deeply about this book and this character and things like that. And I want to get it right. I want to make it right. But I think it definitely kind of threw me for a loop. One, that I wasn't able to get it done when I originally said it was going to get done. And two, that the story was just so much more. It's ending up being like so much more than I had originally planned. So, but having said that, I have kind of mentally just, recommitted to getting that book finished. So much so that I contracted to work with a new to me editor. She's wonderful. She comes highly recommended. She spent 20 years at Penguin Random House before she decided to start doing freelance editing work. So I'm going to be working with her, and my deadline for getting my book to her is July 20th. So today is the 8th. You can do the math on that. And I know that the rough draft will be done by that. But of course, I don't want to send her just my first draft, because I feel like that's an utter waste of, money for me and time for her, right? Because like I know there's things that I can be doing to that book to make it better so that I'm getting the full value and use out of her skills and expertise. And so really, like what's today? Wednesday. And my hard stop on this book is I worked on it a little bit this morning, and I want to have this draft finished by tomorrow. Now that's going to be interesting because I actually work tomorrow. So, but I don't have to be there at the airport until around noon. And so that gives me, if I what's always worked well for me is getting up at like 4:00 in the morning and writing like first thing. And so if I do that again tomorrow, I think between doing another writing session this evening, and then tomorrow morning, I will have that very rough, that rough draft done. And then that way, if nobody picks up my trip that I have for, let's see, it starts tomorrow and I get back very early Saturday morning. If nobody picks it up, then I can, on the layover, because it's a long layover, I can be really starting to work on those edits and things like that. So that's the plan. More tomorrow. So I'll update you and let you know how it's going. So I do feel excited and recommitted, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel for this book, and it's making me excited. Furthermore, for this title, I have done something that I haven't done since I was traditionally publishing books, and I am working with a professional cover designer on this. So you may or may not know, for my last two books that are self-published, Once Upon a Lie and The Last Nanny, those covers I both designed myself. I don't know. I mean, I think they were good or good enough kind of thing. The books sell, and nobody has complained about them. But I think I really do. I just want that the benefit and the expertise of people who specialize in cover design, right? Particularly for my genre, which is psychological suspense, domestic thrillers, that type of thing. So I have a cover design, or I have a new cover design for her name was Lola. I'm really excited about it. I absolutely love it. And I love it so much so that I have asked them to please redo the covers for Once Upon a Lie and The Last Nanny, because my thought is I would like my sort of author branding to be cohesive. Now they're not, it's not a series, so it doesn't have to be like exactly the same, but things like font and color schemes and like, your name, your author name on your cover and where it's placed and things like that. I would like some continuity with regards to those things. And so they're going to be redoing those covers for me, which is really exciting. And so more to come on that front. But anyway, that's all the news, like sort of on the book front right there. And it's coming along, and I can't wait for you guys to read it. Hopefully, you're going to love it. I actually love it. And I think it's going to be great once we really dig into those edits, and make it really polished and shiny. So, the other thing that's part of my mid-year reset is happening is that, and this comes back to what I was just kind of saying, is the getting and accepting help. So, if you watched my last video on self-sabotage, I admitted in there that one of the things that is really difficult for me to do is ask for and then accept help from others. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of childhood BS reasons, why that is the case. But I recognize it. But even though I recognize it, that it's not always enough to kind of help you overcome it. And so I think it's just one of the things I've really been thinking about, the last few months, and realizing that, for me to really move the needle in my author career, it's going to be impossible for me to continue to be this one man show. So sorry, I need a little bit of tea. And I really want to benefit from the expertise of people in other fields that can bring more to the table than I could ever do, all on my own. And so that's been big for me. So, particularly we talked about the cover designer, hiring a cover designer and having them also redo my backlist titles, and then working with this new editor, which I'm very excited with. She did like a sample edit for me on like the first chapter. She came highly recommended. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like, finishing out this project. And then the last thing that's part of my mid-year reset is organizing spaces around my house and taking care of projects that have been kind of hanging over my head. Now, my kids moved out. Actually, my son just moved back in. But, my kids are adults, so I'm not dealing with like little kids and, that kind of thing anymore. But I will say we've been in this house for 20 years. And I love our house and I love where it's situated and all these things, but there are so many projects in this house that need to be tackled, things that need to be updated, things that just need to be, taken care of and whatnot. So right now, like in our basement, we have like a half basement and it's finished, but I have a very small shower down there in a little bath that needs to be redone. And for a while there, because why? Because I have this history of thinking I can do everything myself. I was planning on doing the shower myself, and I was watching videos on YouTube, and never mind the fact that I have a job and a writing career and all this kind of stuff, and I have no time really to sort of tackle this. In my head, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I watched three YouTube videos, and I'm like, I could totally do that. I don't need to ask anyone for help. So I have let that go. I've actually reached out to a contractor. They're coming next week to give me an estimate on the shower. Very excited about that. And it feels good. Like it's just something that's going to get taken care of. And, the relief I feel to know that again, somebody who has the expertise. Like, I don't need to be learning how to tile a shower, or, make sure a drain is lined up, or, any of these things. And um, it really just feels like, an utter relief to me to allow myself to just ask for help, to schedule the person to come out and, take care of this thing. And I, I, I wish, I don't know why I have such a hard time. I should have been doing this for years, like asking other people for help. So anyway, that was one of the big ticket items that was on my brainstorm list for July, like, of things that have been kind of hanging over my head and just need to get taken care of. And so, but yeah, like just organize, like tackling, like our garage was golden. And then, we moved my son once and my daughter another time. And if you have adult children and you have a garage, let me just tell you, like, like it becomes kind of like their self-storage unit, right? Their free self-storage unit. And so it's a 3-car garage. So that middle, car garage is kind of filled up with all the stuff that they didn't need in their new place that they moved to. So I want to get that, kind of taken care of, because for me, when spaces are open and accessible, like I just feel like, and this maybe sounds a little woo woo, but like energy just flows better. And it's like I feel more grounded, and I'm like spinning less up in my head about things that are, not moving the needle on my author career, or, anything else. And so that has felt really good to sort of wrap my head around, okay, like what are the priorities around the house and things that I want to get taken care of, and let's start calling the people, or let's start like digging in and doing the work ourselves, kind of thing. So, once I get off with you here today, I'm heading upstairs and just cleaning out our loft area, because it just seems like it's these like kind of extra or spare spaces seem to be the places that sort of collect all of our, extra stuff, or the stuff that we don't know quite what to do with. And like my daughter is staying with us for the summer. She's got like a break from school, and like her giant suitcase is in there right now. And among other things, sort of like this pile of books everywhere. I'm like, does anyone else have books breed in their house? Like an author? I don't think so. So there's so many books in this house everywhere. And don't get me wrong, like I'm the one contributing to that. I'm the one that is, I just bought a whole stack of books the other day. I'm like, what are you doing? You have to read all the books that you already have, and the physical books and my Kindle books. Let's be real about that. So, but anyway, that's a whole other video, like talking about TBR pile and getting through that. Back to the organization though, just getting spaces sorted and in a good place. And I think all of this, just like setting up for the second half of this year to be ready for when, her name is Lola is going to launch, and when I can reveal what the new covers are going to be for Once Upon a Lie and The Last Nanny. So just a lot of really exciting things. Like I said, was just a chatty video. I didn't do any flat lays of like my planner, like for the next, month or 2 months or whatever, but we can definitely do that. If that's something you're interested, just let me know. But in the meantime, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that your second half of 2026 is shaping up, and that you're excited about tackling this, the rest of summer, and, fall is just around the corner, which is always one of my most favorite time of years. It just feels like it's a super productive back to school energy, which I have always loved and probably always will love. But that's probably all I have for today. Again, tomorrow, depending on, it might be here from the house, it might be on my layover, depending on if somebody picks up my trip for tomorrow or not. But I will update you on how it's going with my finishing out for Her Name Was Lola. Fingers crossed I stick to it and I get it done. I shouldn't say fingers crossed. I should just say I'm absolutely doing it. It's getting done. And tomorrow you will see the results. So come back, hold me to it, and we'll chat some more then. Thanks. Bye.